Hello from the Holy Land. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is our final day in Israel on June 5th, 2025. As always, live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. We are live right now at the JNS studios, which are quite spectacular, if I do say so myself. Thanks to everybody at JNS for hooking us up. It's been a really, really wonderful trip. As you guys know, we started in Hungary for a couple days, Israel for a couple days. It's been particularly meaningful here in Jerusalem. Yesterday, going to the Western Wall, we got an unbelievable tour of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the holiest site in Christianity. I got to actually hold the key to the door of the church that has been held by one family for over 1,000 years and handed back generation to generation. And we had a great show last night in Jerusalem and back to America tonight. So we're just going to dive into the show today. There's a lot of wackiness happening with the Dems. Then there's a lot of fighting about this big, beautiful bill, and then some of the other things Trump is trying to do, particularly as it pertains to the deportation of this psychotic jihadist lunatic who overstayed a visa from Egypt and threw Molotov cocktails and tried to burn, I think, 8 people. I mean, the story is just absolutely psychotic, and maybe when they say we're going to globalize the Intifada, we should start paying attention to that. But let's start with just some like crazy old-fashioned Democrat lunacy. Listen to this one from the leading report. Breaking: former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has left the Democrat Party. So we haven't talked much about Karine lately. You know, once she was out, once the quote-unquote Biden administration or the auto pen administration was gone, she was out too. This is a woman who took over for Jen Psaki, who was quite terrible, but then took, probably a $7-figure million deal over at MSNBC, because that's what journalism is all about. But Karine got the job literally because she was black and a lesbian. That's what they said. They were so proud of her genitals and her sexuality and her skin color. She could not possibly have been worse. If there was a Hollywood writer trying to come up with the most sort of inept, sold out, not qualified person, like that was her. But she does have nice fluffy hair and she did wear nice pantsuits, so people did like that. But she is leaving the Democrat Party and at the same time writing a book. I believe we have the cover right here. It is called Independent: A Look Inside a Broken White House Outside the Party Lines. I gotta tell you guys, maybe because I'm here in Israel, particularly in Jerusalem, which is so close to like eternal truth, having heard the title of this book and the fact that this woman is pretending to write it and everything else, there might be nobody outside of Jill Biden, right, who is really running cover in the most intimate way for Joe Biden. There might be nobody that has more to do with the scandal around Joe Biden and his health and his inability to be at meetings and the slurring and the stammering and all of the stuff than Karine Jean-Pierre. She was the person they put up there literally to lie every day. And it's just kind of strange, like to the backdrop of the Jake Tapper book, where, as I said, I will be happy to sit down with Jake Tapper. I'm in a mood right now after being in the Holy Land to heal some of what's going on here. But just as I'm in that mood, then I see this story and it's like, man, all of you guys, you all did all of this terrible stuff. You ran cover for the mental stuff, for opening the border, for all of the woke stuff, and now you're gonna all pretend you had nothing to do with it. So for Karine Jean-Pierre, sorry, I don't think I can let you get away with this one, because you are the avatar for the ineptitude across the board. But here's Karine Jean-Pierre. Maybe I'm wrong, so let's play a video of Karine Jean-Pierre telling us about her book's message.
Hi, I'm Karine Jean-Pierre, and I am the author of a new book that's coming out this fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, And sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Karine, how do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next? Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people? October 21st.
She seems authentic, right? That's like authenticity 101. I mean, it's just pure drivel. You want to know how you get out of it? You elect Donald Trump so that when people are like, oh, everything's so screwed up, the border is so screwed up, all right, he's going to fix the border. The economy is so screwed up, all right, he'll fix the economy. The trade deals, the wokeness. Now, I get it. You have a different opinion on all of these things. You wanted and ran cover for open border. You wanted the wokeness. You wanted the DEI stuff. You wanted all of those things. But this is just pure nonsense. Why would you, if you were employed by the Democrat Party, by the Democrat administration to spread their nonsense for 2 years, 2+ years, did you not believe anything you were saying? I mean, I in some sense, I don't even care. If you believed it, you were kind of an idiot. And if you didn't believe it and you were saying it, then you're just a sellout. So one way or another, lady, you don't come off looking pretty good here. But don't take my word for it. I think we have a little compilation, a little montage, as they say, of Karine Jean-Pierre spreading misinformation.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking.
You said, Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here.
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind.
The book is suggesting the president tells aides he's tired.
But that's in the excerpt, right?
Yeah, and that's why there have been so few public events before 10 a.m.
I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption to make.
President Biden is the oldest president in U.S. history. Why does White House staff treat him like a baby?
No one treats the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, like a baby.
So there's this book that says
that's ridiculous.
When staff
that's a ridiculous claim.
What's
I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
All right, so you guys know, one of the things I talk about all the time is the very people who do all the bad stuff, they somehow are able to often just recalibrate themselves right in front of us. And we can't let them all get away with it all the time. She wants to go into the private sector, do whatever the hell she wants to do with the rest of her life, fine. But the idea that she's writing a book and then will be on a major press tour and in October when it rolls around, she will have, the same way we just watched Jake Tapper just be in the media for a month for a book that was about the thing that he covered up. Come October, she will have every connection. She will be on every TV show. New York Times will put her at #1 because it's not a list based on sales. It's a list based on how they want to list people out when it comes to sales. She will be part of the machine at that point. And we should all call out BS on it now. There is no one better. You are the avatar for the lies, lady. There is nothing you have said ever, as far as I can tell, that is true or even in the realm of truth. Back in February, though, she did sort of hint at which way she was going with all of this.
Personally, I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me. What was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad. And I had never seen anything like it before. I'd never seen a party do that in the way that they did. And it was hurtful and sad to see that happening. A firing squad around a person who I believe was a true patriot, a person who I believe did everything that he can for this country, a person who I believe, as I mentioned before, has done more in one term than most presidents had done in 2 terms, historical things. And I was shocked by what I was seeing.
And Karine, just to clarify, these are other Democrats and Democratic leadership coming out against Biden.
Yep, I had never seen anything like that. That was, if you're asking me, the thing that I saw in those 3 weeks, that was shocking.
I'm going to try right now to pretend that I believe anything you're saying to be authentic. So if what she just said right there is authentic, that she believed all of those great things about Joe Biden and they were doing all of these great things, and she had never seen a firing squad around this man who clearly she thought was competent and doing all these amazing things, if I can go along with all of that, well, then I guess I can go along with the idea of why you're leaving the party, because you don't want to be party members with people that destroyed the guy that you love. But that's quite a bridge. That's quite a bridge to build, to know that you were around this guy in the most intimate setting and that you didn't see what we all now see, which they're basically admitting themselves, right? Post the cancer diagnosis too, like that there was obviously a lot of stuff here. So again, she's either a complete liar or she's such a believer in Joe Biden that she now thinks that the Democrat Party is so rotten that she can't be part of it. Now, I think the Democrat Party is seriously rotten. I'll offer another opinion here. I think that maybe what's going on here is she's really trying to get ahead of something. The Democrats, and we'll have more on this in a little bit, the Democrats are in so much trouble right now for all the reasons that we talk about all the time. Their poll numbers are going so badly. There's no message. There's no leader. There's just so much chaos there, and they're always looking out for the bad guys and the jihadists and the illegals and all of those things. That she may realize the Democrats are so screwed right now that by leaving the Democrat Party, she'll be ahead of something. She will be ahead of the absolute decimation of the party. But what's the real answer? You want to get out of the 2 parties? You want to get out of 2 boxes? Well, first off, Trump expanded the Republican Party, right? He expanded the base. MAGA is way more than just a conservative, old school Republican movement, obviously. But what is her real end game with this? You want people to get out of the 2 things. Okay, are you going to start a party now? Is that what you're going to do? Here's a little of Scott Jennings, and he is not convinced that KJP is authentic.
I have a different view. I'd like to congratulate Democrats for ridding yourselves of this untalented mediocrity. I mean, this is the most self-aggrandizing liar that has ever held this job. The White House press secretary is a sacred position, and she stood up there for years and lied through her teeth to the American people.
My friend,
and
she's not the first.
She is the literal worst White House press secretary in my lifetime. And what she did in the last year and a half of the Biden administration, cheap fakes, the entire cover-up around the president's mental faculties, she was in the center of it.
So you think she's doing this to launder herself?
So congratulations for getting rid of this, but Democrats deserve everything they're getting here for putting her in that job in the first place.
The fact that it seems like she was in the White House for her own personal gain and not to service the American people.
I agree with you.
And part of that is Alex Thompson has some reporting that she had a publicist working for her pro bono to lift up her profile.
Oh, well, that's interesting that Alex Thompson, the guy who co-wrote the book with Jay Tapper, has some info about a PR person that Karine was working with. But of course, Scott is right, and the other lady there is right too. She's just laundering right now. She's in the process of laundering. Nobody likes her. Nobody believes her. She ran cover-up for the greatest political scandal of our lifetimes. And Jennings is absolutely right, by the way. Look, you can say that all press secretaries have to lie in a sense, right? The president, the administration has a set of policies. A press secretary, what does a press secretary do? What would a PR company do for any company that has a crisis or any person that has a problem, right? You massage it for the media. So their job in some essence, the job is not really to lie, but it's to message a certain way. And then the media's job is to sort of decipher the messaging. But the media didn't want to do that. They just wanted to repeat whatever she said, and she just wanted to lie about everything. But right now, she is trying to do a reclamation project, and it will peak in October when this book comes out, unless enough of us just call it out for what it is. Like, lady, you are a liar. There has been nobody worse, right? And there have been terrible press secretaries. Jen Psaki was awful. How often did I make make fun of Jen Psaki. And then what happened? Jen Psaki was so bad. What was her thing? The binders, I'll get back to you on that one. What was her line? I'll circle back to you on that one. She never had an answer for anything. But Jen Psaki looks like an all-star dream team member compared to Karine Jean-Pierre. But we'll move on to other things because there is a major fight in the Republican Party, although I would say it is a much healthier fight than what the Democrats are having right now over the big, beautiful bill. But first, gravity to fire. You guys know I'm all about logic and reason, and here's some simple logic. If your feet are killing you at the end of the day, you need new shoes. That's why I love G-Defy shoes by Gravity Defier. Their patented Verso Shock technology absorbs harmful shock, returns energy, and is designed to make walking, running, and standing feel effortless. Whether you're out and about or just on your feet all day, G-Defy makes every step better. Right now, my listeners get 30% off orders over 120. Just text Rubin30 to 91888 or visit gdefy.com and use code Rubin30 at checkout. Use logic, choose comfort, G-Defy. All right, so let's talk about the triple B, the big, beautiful bill, and there is some infighting, and I would say I would frame all of this with some infighting in a party when it is happening publicly is good. That is transparent. When you have a bill that's trying to be passed and you have people who are in the same party and some are going, it's too much spending and there's going to be too much deficit. And some people are going, no, we have to do it for this reason or that reason. But when it's done publicly, then we have a sense of actually what's going on here. So I'm going to try to cover this with all angles here. So let's start with Elon Musk, who obviously, because of Doge and all of the cuts and getting rid of the fraud with USAID and all of this other stuff, he wants government spending cut. He does not want us to increase the deficit. That seems to be his number one priority. And he tweeted this out about the big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump is for. He wrote, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those of you who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." Okay. That's not a guy mincing words right there, right? Like, that is as clear and as concise as you can be. He's saying this is bad. I don't like it. I know who did it. You know who did it. And do something about it, Americans. Call your senator. That was his next tweet. Call your senator. Call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill. Okay, so we've got some drama here. Absolutely, right? Trump brought him in to cut spending. Then a bill gets to his desk, passed by congressional Republicans. Hasn't been hit by the Senate yet. And there is some issue around, okay, you want tax cuts and you want to cut fraud and things like that. But if you're going to spend more than you're cutting, the deficit does go up. He doesn't want anything to do with that. But again, this is all happening publicly, which is good. And it's completely the reverse of everything the Democrats did. For example, like when they had a soft coup and they eliminated the sitting president of the United States, that was done behind closed doors. We're seeing things done. We're seeing the arguing happening in real time. We're seeing it happen on X. And here is Speaker Johnson, who is on the other side of this. So again, I think this is good because then you can make your opinion. So there you have Elon, too much spending, right? Too much spending. We're getting some cuts, but too much spending. Here's Speaker Johnson, who's on the other side of this, saying that Elon basically is a little confused about what's going on here.
Look, let me just address the Elon controversy and tell you that I consider Elon a friend. He's obviously brilliant. I just told you we credit him with all the big changes with Doge and everything else. It's curious to me what happened this week. And full disclosure, Elon and I had a great conversation, about a half-hour-long talk on Monday this week, Monday morning. And we talked about the big, beautiful bill because I think he was trying to make a joke a couple of days earlier. It can't be big and beautiful. And I started the conversation, oh, yes, it can, my friend. It's very beautiful. So we talked about all the record level of savings. My friends, no government in the history of mankind has ever cut $1.6 trillion in a piece of legislation. We're doing that here. I mean, the extraordinary level of savings and the historic level of tax cuts at the same time, and all these great policy prescriptions. And I talked to Elon through all that and explained to him what we're doing, and that this is just the beginning of a long process of making government more efficient and effective, of cutting wasteful spending, fraud, and abuse. And you can't do it all in one bill. It took Congress decades to get to this situation. The Biden administration, Biden-Harris, made such a disaster of every metric of public policy, it's going to take us more than one bill to fix it all. Elon and I left on a great note. We were texting one another, happy texts, Monday. And then yesterday, 24 hours later, he does a 180 and he comes out and opposes the bill. And it surprised me, frankly. And I don't take it personal. We don't take it personal. You know, he's policy differences are not personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big, beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better.
All right, so look, I think I can't tell you which way this all, in reality, is the bill good or bad? I can't. I've read as much as I can about it. I've been paying attention. I obviously like Elon. It's interesting what Mike Johnson just said right there, right? You're going to get an over $1 trillion in savings and the tax cuts, and it's just the first step in all of this. He's a politician. Elon, at this point, well, he's not a politician, and he's outside of the government, and he's focused on one thing. So I don't know which is like purely right here, but I do know that seeing people that are part of MAGA argue this publicly is good. This is so completely different from the previous administration, which either lied or hid everything from us. So we never knew what was going on. And right now you're seeing it happen. It's playing out in real time. And I really do think that is positive one way or another. And maybe that is how you get to some negotiations. Here's more from Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, who I think has been one of the best in terms of just communicating what the policies are of the government. And he wrote this on Twitter. One of the bigger points of confusion on the big, beautiful bill is spending versus tax cuts. The lefty Congressional Budget Office says that extending the 2017 cuts, preventing their expiration, increases the deficit. Some critics have seen this figure and claimed or implied the bill increases spending. Even according to the CBO, the bill cuts spending over $1.6 trillion. That's what Mike Johnson said also. So when a libertarian, for example, Rand Paul, attacks the deficit impact of the bill, they are attacking the tax cut. Of course, honestly accounted, extending current tax rates has zero deficit impact, which is why the bill, because of its spending cuts, reduces the deficit. A second major point of confusion is what's actually in the reconciliation bill. It's not an appropriations bill or a general budget bill. It provides no funding or authorization for 99% of operations of the government. It was written not by appropriators, but some of the most conservative members of the House. It has not a single Democrat provision or vote. The bill has three principal sections: tax cuts, welfare reform, immigration, and border security. It is a dream bill. Okay, again, this is on all of us to try to make some sense of and see who you trust here and everything else. My sense basically is that Elon is very focused on not spending anymore. He just spent 3 months of his life working for free, basically 24 hours a day, just cutting. Then he sees this thing that comes in, and I don't think Elon's debating whether it has this trillion plus in savings and some of the tax cuts and all of that. But he's then saying, but okay, you're cutting some of this stuff, but then you're spending a whole bunch more, and long term, that is not good. So there is a public fight. It's not even a public fight. There is a public argument. This is what politics is. Politics is trying to compel people to see things your way, to get policies that make sense for you. And there's an argument in the Republican Party right now. I think that's good. Here's Scott Jennings agreeing with that premise.
But this is a big, threat to his agenda.
Well, first of all, they're friends. They get along. Elon Musk had a lot to do with President Trump winning last year and has been a big part of the administration. I don't think there's any reason to go out and trash an ally like Elon Musk.
Well, he's not acting like an ally at the moment.
Well, he has a difference of opinion about this one issue, and that's okay.
In fairness, these people did too. I mean, Rand Paul has the same difference of opinion, actually, on the deficit.
But what the White House and the congressional leadership believe is that this opinion that Elon has formed and some others is based on faulty scoring from the CBO. They just have a different point of view about this. And at the end of the day, this is the president's agenda. He ran on making the tax cuts permanent, welfare reform, and border security. That is the core of this bill. And I think all Republicans want to cut spending. All Republicans want to get the debt and deficit under control. But this is how the president won the election: the national popular vote, the electoral college, tax cuts, welfare reform, border security. This is the vehicle for that. And I don't think failure is an option.
Okay, so there you have Jennings basically being like, look, this might be an accounting error in some sense, or like that they're just sort of looking at different numbers, or they see the Congressional Budget Office numbers and they're just like taking them in a different way. Again, I don't really know what is true there, but I think you can just see the vision of what they want, which is that Elon is outside of the government, wants cuts. The other guys, and Jennings seems to be on board the Trump position on this, which is that the bill is doing the basic things that Trump promised: tax cuts, welfare reform, border, and for that reason, it's good. And then you can look back on to what I just read from Stephen Miller, where he lays out a little bit more of the specifics. Now, my sense probably is that it's pretty good because of the video I'm about to show you, which is several Democrats. And several Democrats who have, for the past 6 months or so, told you that Elon was a white supremacist who made the Heil Hitler thing, and who they were thrilled when people were burning down Tesla stations, and they were saying that he was evil, all the horrible things they've been saying about Elon. Well, now that there's a little bit of daylight, apparently, between Trump and Elon, you're never going to believe who are Elon's #1 fans.
And say something I didn't think was imaginable. I agree with Elon Musk.
Breaking news, Elon Musk and I agree with each other.
To be very clear, this is not a big, beautiful bill. It's a big, beautiful betrayal of the middle class.
All right, so do you get it? Do you think the Democrats suddenly care about spending? The Democrats' entire operation for the last however long you want to go back has been about big government. It has been about spending. It has been about endless bureaucracy. It has been about the Inflation Reduction Act, which increased inflation. They believe you can endlessly print money. The Democrats never talk about the deficit, but suddenly they agree with Elon when it's politically expedient, when it's in their favor. But the point is that their prerogatives are largely in opposition to his, right? That's why they've been hating him. But they see a moment where they can drive a wedge in the MAGA thing, and they're all going for it. It's the most obviously, ridiculously opportunistic thing that you can think of. Eric Daughtry from Florida's Voice News, I thought he summed it up quite well. Democrats trying to wade into the big, beautiful spending bill battle think they are way more important than they actually are. Elon Musk is attacking the bill from the right, from a spending too much perspective, whether you agree with his opinions or not. Democrats just want to spend more and oppose tax cuts. They want nothing good. Everything and anything they say on this subject is comical noise. Right, and that's the point. That's the point that I just made. The Democrats are not suddenly like, oh my God, we really want tax cuts and we're really concerned about the deficit. They're doing this only for the most cynical political reasons you possibly could do anything. And when it comes to cynical political reasons, I think you should be cynical about anything that comes out of the Democrats at this point. Again, the Democrats have done everything for the last however many years behind the scenes as they've radicalized and really just gone off the deep end on virtually every single policy. And it's not just the base, and it's not just the congressional or Senate Democrats, it's the people they appoint as well. Listen to this from Town Hall. New Biden-appointed judge blocks President Trump from deporting the family of Boulder, Colorado terrorism suspect Mohamed Soliman. So this is the man in Boulder, Colorado, who threw Molotov cocktails at least 8 people and burned them, including an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor who was talking about killing all Zionists, which is basic, just means you think Israel should exist, which is almost all Americans, actually, well over 80% of Americans. And he overstayed his visa, and he was a psycho jihadist who should not be in this country. And you know what? At this point, sorry, you got to go home. I saw an article from, I don't know, it was USA Today or something, where they were like, the daughter of the Egyptian national blah, 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 was in nursing school or wanted to be a doctor or something. It's like, okay, sorry, you can go do that in Egypt. Enough of this. We either have to be a serious country or not. Did these people have no idea what their dad was up to? He was an illegal immigrant who came here in 2022, overstayed the visa. You got to go. And Trump really has been great on the messaging on this. Here he is at the White House.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies. and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
All right, so again, this is Trump doing something that he ran on. He's messaging it clearly, and there's two main points here. You know, he brought up Europe, and if we had a DeLorean and we had a flux capacitor and 1.21 gigawatts of power and all that stuff, and we could go back, if you were a European, and you could go back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and reverse all of your immigration policies and end the open border stuff and not let in millions and millions of people who are there to overthrow your governments and destroy your culture and everything, you know damn well that virtually every European except the most crazed, brain-broken leftist would do it. Trust me, I was just at CPAC Hungary, and everyone from every other country that was there, particularly UK, France, and Germany, they realize that their countries are teetering on the edge. Actually, in Holland now, Geert Wilders, who's the prime minister, has just collapsed the government because even though he wants to protect his country's borders and he wants to deport people, he's been in a coalition with parties that don't want to. So he wants new elections to see if he can get a more far-right party, which is exactly what, when I had a meeting with Viktor Orban, the prime minister of Hungary, exactly what he said Geert Wilders should be doing. And that was just a few days before. I don't know if he had any insider knowledge or whatever. But so that's one portion of it, that we just can't let people here that we have no idea why they're here and what their intentions are and everything else. There is a bigger issue, though, and the bigger issue, and this is where it's going to get really messy, and this is why what this judge just did by trying to stop the deportations is so dangerous, is we have no idea how many more of these Egyptian nationals who want to throw Molotov cocktails people are there, who will strap on suicide bombs, who will blow up buses or whatever else. We have no idea how many are in the country. So we better get serious quick, otherwise it will get much worse quickly. Nobody wants that. And this has nothing to do with Israel or Jews or anything else. Do you want people in your country who believe that because they have some set of political beliefs or cultural beliefs or religious beliefs, they're allowed to murder people in your country? Because it doesn't matter what the issue is, right? It's what the action is. So if the action is, well, I don't like these types of people, I don't like people who think this or that or who vote a different way or whatever it might be, so I am allowed to murder them. Once we bring that ashore, once we basically say that that's okay, then all bets are off, because everyone on every which side would be able to do the reverse of that. Oh, I don't like what they say, so I'm going to murder them. And then you can do that in every which direction. It's deeply dangerous. It's completely anti-American, and Trump's got a big freaking job cut out for him, and we will see if he's up to the test. Let's talk about Chef IQ, and then we'll get a couple RubinReport.locals.com community questions in. Cooking meat shouldn't mean sweating over a grill, guessing if it's done, or burning half while the other half is still raw. That's why I got the Chef IQ Sense, and I'm never going back. It's a wireless, smart cooking sensor that goes right into whatever you're making. Just pick your meat and how you like it in the app, rare, medium, well done. And Chef IQ Sense monitors everything and pings your phone when it's ready. No more hovering, no more guesswork. Just perfectly cooked meat every time. Flash sale happening right now. Get 15% off at chefiq.com with promo code Rubin. That's chefiq.com, promo code Rubin. All right, let's dive into some questions, and then we've got a busy day here in Jerusalem. I'm actually heading to the American embassy here in Jerusalem, where I'll be sitting down with Mike Huckabee, who of course is the American ambassador to Israel. I'm going to do a few more media appearances here, and then a couple other things before we head out tonight. Jeff says, Dave, if you were an establishment Democrat in Congress, what would you do or call for in order to get that party back on track? Well, that's a good question relative to how we started the show with Karine Jean-Pierre. I mean, I genuinely don't know. It is hard to know at all what an establishment or moderate or old school blue dog Dem stands for, because if you were any of those things, what I would be doing So let's say I was just like an average Democrat who wasn't completely on board with the open borders and the woke stuff and everything else, and I see the party in absolute free fall. You know what I'd be doing? I'd be calling my Republican colleagues, and I'd be having coffee with them, and I'd be going out to dinner with them, and I'd be trying to figure out what we have in common. And even if I, for whatever reason in my district, you know, in near Portland or something, was still a Democrat, I'd be trying to work with those guys as much as possible. I will give Karine, I can't believe I'm going to do this, the slightest bit of credit, which is that we have to get out of the completely partisan thing. That, ironically, is what MAGA is all about, is getting out of that, right? Because it's not a traditional Republican movement. But if I was an old school Dem, I would try as much as possible to work with the moderate Republicans, which most Republicans are at this point. I just don't know what you can do with those people at this point. What issue could you win on the Democrat side from a moderate position? I genuinely have no idea. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Cool Mom says, what are some issues the Democrats could be happily spending time working on if they weren't focused on wasting our tax dollars fighting for what the majority of voters voted for? Yeah, I mean, in essence, that's the same question. I don't know. I don't know at this point. Like, what could they be working on? Well, you know, if you were a Democrat and you still loved government, after all the fraud we found, after all of the COVID madness, after all of this stuff, but you still just love government, you might want to go, and this is why the Schumer thing that we just showed you, that compilation, is so cynical. If you were a Democrat, you could have, for the last couple months, been like, you know, I don't agree with Republicans. I don't really like Donald Trump. And Elon, I don't even like that guy. But you know what? I do like the fact that we're getting rid of fraud. But they couldn't even do that. Think about Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, all of these people. They could not even do that. They couldn't even pinch their nose and vote for their former colleague, who was a moderate, Tulsi Gabbard, right? So the ship has so sailed with these people that I have just no sense what can bring them back. Elizabeth says, what was the biggest culture shock when you moved from New York to California and then California to Florida? Boy, so we moved from New York to California, and I had only lived in New York, born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island, went to college upstate New York, lived in Manhattan most of my life. We moved to Los Angeles in 2013. I would say the biggest culture shock for me was after living in New York City. I lived in New York City from 99 to 2013. I was there for 9/11. You know, I was in the hustle and bustle. I was, you know, I was grinding as a stand-up, you know, doing all sorts of odd jobs during the day. There were times I didn't have enough money for a freaking cup of coffee, and then I was doing, you know, 2-3 gigs every night, and I was doing road stuff, and I was just in the like grind of like when you're in your 20s and you don't even know, you just want to do something, and you're not even smart enough to know that like it might not work, and that's why you do it. That's the beauty of the adventure, right? And that's the beauty of youth, I suppose. It was all about the hustle and bustle in New York City. It was just this endless thing. And then I got to LA, and at first we moved to West Hollywood. Eventually we moved to the Valley, and the weather was perfect every single day. And it wasn't hustle and bustle. I remember we would be walking our dog, Emma, at the time, and like it wasn't about her chasing down the Chinese delivery guy or, you know, a homeless guy jumping out, because LA at that time, before all the craziness, was beautiful and clean and simple and everything else. So that, the slower pace was the real shock. And then from Cali to Florida, which we moved in December of 21, I mean, obviously it wasn't a shock, I would say, because I knew it, at least in my head, but it was still the COVID craziness and some version of lockdowns and masks, and I was getting yelled at everywhere, and you know, just all of the terrible stuff that was happening, and then the homelessness and the burning down of Ventura Boulevard, which we lived off of, and everything else. It was all of that in Cali, and then I moved to Florida, and immediately it's just clean and safe, and nobody's wearing a mask, and in my neighborhood there are American flags everywhere. And you know, for the first couple weeks, I think I've talked about this before, I would wear it's still really my only hat that I wear, but my Florida hat with a map of Florida here, so that when the new people in my neighborhood would see me, they would and then say hi, you know, I don't recognize you, where'd you come from? If I say I come from Cali, they would freak out, but then they'd see the Florida hat. Sometimes I would literally have a picture of me in DeSantis on my phone to just be like, you got nothing to worry about with me. So it was really just like, it was the sanity of Florida. It's not that it was shocking to me, but it was, I would say, very validating. Chipster says, what's your thought on the fact that most people that are sentenced to death are never executed? Instead, they die many years later of a disease condition or old age. Many family members of the victim pass without seeing justice. I believe those sentenced to death in cases of no doubt about their guilt should meet their maker within a year. Wow, that's a great question that we should do more. You know, I'm definitely feeling, and I think it's a little bit because of the spiritual nature of being here in Israel, but particularly in Jerusalem, I'm definitely feeling a little bit like I want to get back to some of the philosophical stuff that I used to talk about more instead of like the endlessly nitty-gritty political stuff. And there's a great philosophical debate around the death penalty, obviously. You know, I've shifted. I was largely against it for a long time. You can find a debate of mine from about 10 years ago where I, on the left, was debating against the death penalty. Dennis Prager was debating for it. And I have shifted in some sense. So I'm not against the death penalty in the airtight cases. But you are right. People, because of the amount of time they end up staying there, the amount of challenging in the court cases, that often these people they end up staying on death row for years and years and years. And to your point, then family members of the people who really paid the ultimate price with a loved one who was killed by these people, then they don't get to see justice. I don't know what the exact best way to do that is. In the airtight way, yeah, it probably should be done a little bit faster, but I promise you I'll do some more shows on this from both perspectives. Francis says, is there any other state that you would live in outside of Florida? Well, look, it would only be a red state, obviously. You know, we were in Austin a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned to you guys that in the city of Austin, which is blue, and the motto is Keep Austin Weird, basically like Portland, there was a lot of homeless people. I was not happy there. I'm over city life in general. I don't like it anymore. I want nothing to do with cities. I like being outside, having a little bit of land, being separate and distant. I think it's just part of life and having a family and that kind of stuff. But I did go to the outskirts of Austin, you know, about an hour away where Roseanne Barr lived, and we did a podcast, and I went to Joel Lonsdale's house. That podcast will be up in a couple weeks. And there are great areas where, you know, you can have like a gated community, and you can have some land, and it feels much more rural, and you can do some farming, and you can have some animals and all of that stuff. That's interesting to me. So there's several places outside of Dallas that would be somewhat interesting to me. You know, I don't know, maybe something like Montana or Utah. I'm definitely much more into the rural things these days, but I'm not interested in ever going back to a place that I think could flip back blue, or I'm definitely not interested in a city at all. Let's talk about balance of nature real quick, and then a couple more questions before we continue on with the day. Eating right every day is tough. That's why there's Balance of Nature. Their fruit and veggie capsules pack the nutrients of 31 whole fruits and vegetables processed to preserve maximum nutrition. No additives, no hassle. Add their fiber and spice blend, and you've got a simple system to support energy, healthy skin, and overall vitality. While food prices keep rising, Balance of Nature hasn't raised theirs in over a decade. Make a splash into summer with Balance of Nature. Sign up at balanceofnature.com with code Rubin to get 35% off your first order and a free fiber and spice supplement. Hurry, this offer is only available while supplies last. Dave says, not me, another Dave, says, have you read The Art of the Deal? It describes Trump's goal of making win-win deals. You know what? I've only read excerpts of it, but in light of what we just talked about on the show today, this public fight about a negotiation, I will read it. I am going to try to download it. I've got it's a 11-hour flight or something from Miami, or from Tel Aviv back to Miami, and for some reason I can't sleep on planes anymore. I don't know what's happened there. I am going to download it, and I will try to read it, and I will get back to you next week on that. I've read little excerpts, and I know enough about it, but yeah, it would be good to get a little more insight into that. Heidi says, Karen Bass defends her water chief because there was a rip in the reservoir cover. Has anyone heard of duct tape? Yeah, I sort of glossed over that yesterday because she just says it. This is where they're talking about, hey, your water chief got $700+ salary. Like, how ridiculous is all of this? And she's like, well, they weren't great, and there was a rip in the thing. But this is what the Democrats are. You pay inept people lots of money. The buck never stops with anyone. So it doesn't matter if the water chief was a DEI hire who wasn't competent, and that Karen Bass obviously is not truly competent to be running that city. Oh, there was a rip. Oh, we didn't think that the reservoir should be filled because we thought there was enough time in the San Diego winds. It's just all of it's nonsense. So whether it was duct tape that could have fixed it or anything else, it's like, none of you people deserve the jobs in the first place. But you know what? You've got the jobs, and that's why I will not live in Los Angeles ever again. Polly says, what were some of the jokes you told on the stage in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv? Well, you know, I did very, very different shows. We'll probably show you some video of it. But I like keeping the theater things just sort of in the theater. That's the beauty of doing a live show. You're with a group of people, you're with a couple hundred people, and it's live, it exists then, and that's it. But the shows were very different. Tel Aviv, right before we did the show, everybody on their phones. I mean, a minute before the show, we're getting incoming rocket warnings, and there was a siren outside, and it turned out that our theater the theater was downstairs. The theater itself was a bomb shelter, all in concrete. So obviously I started the show with that. You know, you don't want to bomb in a comedy club. This is a little literal. And then we just kind of went from there. And then Tel Aviv, you know, it was just like I really messed around with the crowd. Yesterday in Jerusalem, it was maybe we'll show you some pictures and stuff. Yesterday in Jerusalem, it was a very different show. I really was feeling quite moved by the experience that I talked about at the top of the show, being at the Western Wall, the holiest site in Judaism, which is just moments away, a few-minute walk, which we took, and we filmed a lot of it, from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the holiest site in Christianity, and just walking those streets that Jesus walked, and walking the streets that all of our ancestors walked, regardless of your religion now, and seeing a place that, you know, the Orthodox black hat-wearing, bearded Jew is walking next to a woman in a burqa, and you hear Arabic, and you hear English, and you hear Hebrew, and you hear a whole bunch of you hear all sorts of languages from all over the world, because all these people come here. It was quite moving. So anyway, the show last night was, I think, much more heartfelt, and I talked a little bit more about my spiritual journey and things like that. But both were really great, and I hope to do this. You know what? If you're in another country right now and you want to invite me, I'm going to see what I can do. I can't get everywhere, but I will do the best I can. I like meeting people from other places in the world. I like seeing what, you know, problems and solutions people have to all of the things that we're dealing with. And we do have a worldwide audience, so I appreciate it. I also appreciate the fine people at JNS. And if any of you are in the podcast game and you need a really spectacular studio, there are many different versions of what we could have done here. We went with the digital background, but they got a great background with bookshelves and all sorts of stuff. And the people are great here. If you ever need a studio in Jerusalem, contact JNS. I thank you guys for watching. We're heading up to meet Ambassador Mike Huckabee, and then back to the United States of America. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
Never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted.